Hello. Hello, hello, hello. I'll put this on. Wow, I'm looking at a picture of me. That's a very relaxed, wonderful, it's adorable. I'm coming to you in safe Berks and this even colder weather from New York, and directing my second episode of Elsbeth, which has turned into my new passion. So I'm wearing my work boots that I always wear during work. I'm wearing my watch because you have 12 hours in a day to shoot, and if you don't go over, you're in trouble with the network. So I'm going to take that off. Okay. But somebody just say, Robin, time's up, or something like that. Andy, you were fantastic, by the way. I'd been waiting to hear your story, and I want to commend you for speaking. I have to say, I visited Safe Berks today, the facility, which was so fantastic. And I kind of mention what I've been doing in the world that I've come from and this army, and there still aren't many women that are directing, quite honestly. And there are even fewer Black women that are directing. And most people, when I come in, they say, oh, Robin Givens is directing. I became a member of the DGA 6 years ago, but everybody thinks I'm like this big, and I'm this big. I always say on a good day after a yoga class, I'm 2 inches taller, but so I'm kind of still in work mode and getting all of that done. And when I left Safe Berks today, I had CBS waiting, like, where's your edit, where's your edit, where's your edit, and it is such a fantastic facility. I mean, I saw every inch of it except the 3rd floor, and I'm sure somebody understands why, but the kitchens and the pantries and the pots and pans and the little small rooms where children can play, and something where there used to be a hole there in the ground from the lobby. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I said I speak from my heart. I don't have anything written down. That is now something else. And I watched and walked with the people around me that have given it so much love and care and thought. And I see rooms where, now dogs will be able to come if you have to flee with your dogs, and where cats can play. And the point I'm getting to is, it's amazing, and the playground outside is fantastic, and the play area inside is fantastic. And with all of the wonderful people that showed me around, I remember Michaela, a little girl, I forget her name, and she was skipping, which my younger son used to always do. He just skipped everywhere. And I kept thinking, if you can create an atmosphere where a 10-year-old, I asked her how old she was, is still skipping through the hallways, that takes love. That takes love that you can't quite put into words. And I know that, we're here, and I commend all of you and love all of you for being here and all the work that goes into it to raise money to keep this facility going. But that's really what you want. Not only, yes, of course, a safe place, but she was skipping. Like my little Billy skipped forever. He's 25 now, but he skipped forever. And I know that takes an organization of people. They're being organized. They're being like a little army. And in many respects, even what I do now, directing, I'm a football fan, is like a woman coaching a football team. You've got the coaches that handle, the quarterback or the defensive line, or it really takes an army of people that truly in their heart, from their heart, feel honored to be a part of that army and are willing to do everything they can to make it all work in the end. And when I think of this place, the thought I had was, it's so magnificent, and the detail went into it, and what's the name of the gentleman, the tall one that showed me around? Oh, Daniel, oh my gosh. You know, the way he said you can come get anything you want from the kitchen. The way his face lit up. You know, I've been here for 4 years, he said. The way his face lit up. It's almost like the magic of filmmaking. This is a thing you can't quite put into words. And then there's a part of me that I have to say, I wish it didn't have to exist. And that might be a difficult thing to hear, but it's true. You know, my story, my journey began years ago, and I always say before I was born, really. And you mentioned Grace Will Lead Me Home. I'm the third generation of women who have suffered from domestic violence. And knowing my family, my grandmother, Grace, who's why the book is called Grace Will Lead Me Home, left Lexington, Kentucky with 2 small little girls. And I don't know how she had the courage to get on a train and go to New York. Like, I'm a grown-up now, you know, and I admire and respect the courage it must have taken for her to say, I'm not going to take this. And she went to Harlem, New York, and one of her sisters was there, and she lived with them for a certain amount of time. And she worked at an older, well, I know Macy's and Gimbel's, maybe people would know that, you know, B. Altman's, and she sold gloves, and she fell in love with someone else, but still the courage it took for her. But she never wanted to share the story of her situation with her 2 little girls. And when I did Grace Will Lead Me Home, it really took a little bit of investigating, and I had to say to my mother and my grandmother, and they're proud women, prouder than I am, you know, your secrets will be safe with me. You can tell me the story. Because my family, you know, I kind of woke up every morning, my sister and I, where pancakes were made, and there was a smiley face made out of fruit with the pancakes, and there'd be a note under the pancakes, and your bows and your hair were perfect. And I always say I'm a recovering perfectionist. I don't believe in perfection. I think good things can sometimes come out of mess, and there's opportunity in adversity. There really is opportunity. That's when you're made. There's opportunity in adversity. And I had to convince my family that no longer, although my mom says her first memory is going back to Kentucky because she and her sister longed to meet their dad and spend time with him. And she had talked about having a dream where she was sort of in a playpen and a man was hitting her mother, and she would ask her mother about the dream, and my Nana would say, oh, you can't, that never happened, you can't think of that. But when she got to Kentucky and she opened the door and she said, this is the man in my dreams. So once again, later, when my mom met my father, and she still didn't want us to think any ill will of him. But later, when I was sharing and doing just asking some questions, and she says she had me in her arms and my sister in her belly and hiding behind a bush in the wintertime to get away from my father. And she said it was only when my father spanked me that she realized maybe this is going to be an issue. and she left. But I never heard any of this, because everybody, we're a nice Catholic family, and it was their goal as women, and especially, I have to say, Black women who always believe that education in America is the great equalizing factor, to just try their best, as parents often do, to have things perfect for their children and to keep them from feeling any difficulty or pain. And so I understand that. But I believe that it's in talking about it. You have to talk about the monster in the closet. And then no longer you open the closet, the monster's not so big and bad and scary anymore. So I didn't grow up with my father, but I married a man just like my father. Like I said, my mother, who was a single mom, believed education was a great equalizing factor, and I went to Sarah Lawrence at 15, and I went to Harvard Graduate School at 19, and I think even Andy mentioned, you think, hey, you're not supposed to be in this situation. You're too smart, whatever that means, to be in this situation. And I'm old enough to remember Phil Donahue. I don't know how many people remember him, but but it's true. There's no rich enough, no smart enough, you're dealing with you. I was still confronted with that little girl who used to wait by the window for her father to show up with her nose pressed against a cold window, and he didn't show up. And I didn't know what love looked like. I mean, I had not a clue what love looked like from a man. So when I met a man that seemed to show me a lot of attention that I'd never had from a man, it was enticing. It felt good. And then all of a sudden, there was a lot of attention, like, you're coming with me. No, I don't want to go with you. Oh, picking you up and putting you in the car. Red flag. Well, I'm thinking this is love. Oh, picking you up and, you're looking at a guy, and the guy's looking at you and shaking you. Oh, wow. Oh, the first time I was hit by my ex-husband, I can remember it with my eyes open, closed. I'll never forget it, and it plays out in slow motion, where somebody takes a fist and hits you on the side of your head, and you see the fist coming, and I bounced from one wall to another and then was out. And I woke up with a doorman carrying me over his shoulder. And I remember somebody coming in the room even before the hit that kind of came in, watched, and fled. Like they didn't want any part of it. So it's not like anybody was there for any help. But I remember the next day, or next 2 or 3 days, responding the way I think would be the correct way to respond, which is, I'm going to have nothing to do with this person. And then once again, the phone calls come, and another phone call comes, and attention comes, and some more attention comes. And then you say, okay, well, I can see you, and we'll talk about it. And then that person is crying on your lap. And you've got this big man sobbing, saying, please forgive me, and this will never happen again, and I love you. And what's so hard to say to this day is, I'll never forget the feeling of, oh, this is what love feels like. And that's very difficult to admit, that I didn't know the difference. And I thought, okay, well, this is love. You've got it, And we were talking earlier about to be in a relationship with someone where the other people don't know necessarily what's going on, and it's hard to explain, and you're actually very much attached to the person that you're in this dysfunctional relationship with, because you don't have to explain it. They already know what's going on. You don't have to explain it. Where somebody would say, come on, He hit you, you'd be gone. No way. Well, this person already knows what's going on. And in a strange sense, it kind of bonds you. You know, I really don't speak too much, and I was explaining earlier that I never really decided to speak about this. I think somebody talked to me about it, and I was actually in a room with children very much like the ones at Safe Berks, which is so beautiful, and I was sitting with a child visiting with a woman, and I don't speak Spanish at all, and her daughter, but I am a mom, I'm just a mommy, and her daughter was sitting on my lap, and we're coloring, and I just kind of felt like the language barrier did not separate us. And I realized in speaking to different women, first of all, when people like thank me for coming to speak, which you all have so much, it's not really even for you, it's for me. The speaking about it was part of the healing that I needed to do because I just wanted to run away from the world. And I always say, I realized then, your story is my story is your story. It doesn't matter if someone's on TV. It could be the person that's in a neighborhood and the guys all love them and you play golf together. Your story is my story and my story is your story. I've heard so many women and talked to so many women that have lived the details of what I have lived, that have lived being, as we've seen now publicly, somebody dragging somebody down a hallway and people turning their back. Which, if you really think about it, is hard to imagine. Now, when this happened to me, we had no social media. So if you think about a punch in the elevator from a football player, few people would believe that. But you know what? Now we could see it. Now you could see it. I sat with Maria Shriver. That's a game changer, the fact that somebody can see it. Certain things have been in the news. You see it. You see it. You see it. And you can't ignore it. So in many respects, I think that is so empowering to all of us. You see it, and we can no longer ignore it. This happens, and it's still happening. And I was asking the numbers at Safe Berks earlier today if the numbers have gone up or down, and I was told they kind of have stayed the same. And I would so like to believe that they're going down. And I believe when men get involved in this conversation, when men stand up, when men are in the locker room and saying, nah, you can't say that to her. No, it's not cool that you're saying I slapped her around. Nah, when you're at the bar, when you're at wherever, when they get involved in the conversation and say, no, dude, whoever, I'm not good at being a man. When I start acting it out, my kids are like, we don't talk like that, Mom. Okay. But when men get involved in the conversation and say, this is unacceptable, we will go to another level. And we're here. We're at that time where it's another level. I mean, I haven't spoken in so long because for me, it's very difficult because I'm so triggered by the fact that this happened a while ago for me. A very long time ago for me. I mean, last year, I had a very big birthday. I'm 60 years old, And it's like, but if somebody asked me about this, I have a child who's just on set with me. He was supposed to be a lawyer, now he's in film school. I was supposed to be a doctor. It's payback, God, I see you. But if I look at him, he's 25. And he might as well be 19, he's a baby. I look at his friends, and I say to myself sometimes, oh, you poor little girl. You were a little girl. You don't know at 23 that you're not all grown up. You're on that hit show, head of the class, and you can get a house, and you're like, oh, I'm all grown up, which is all what we want to be, and kind of separate from our parents, you know. And I look at him now, and I'm like, you're a baby. But I was younger, and he would disagree with that, but I was younger than my youngest son. So I do say, in many respects, it was a lifetime ago, but it's difficult for me to speak, and tell me if I'm going too long or somebody's in charge. It's difficult for me to speak about it because I'm often triggered, and that 30, 40, whatever the years are, seem like it was a month ago. They can come flooding back like it was a month ago, and it's kind of hard for me to recover. But now I'm happy that I'm here, standing before you, not only because you all have a great organization, truly, I mean truly, 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 but I'm standing before you not crying. I am not crying. I am not crying, and that's shocking because I would usually be trembling inside, and it's some breakthrough for me. So once again, thank you that I would not be aware that I'm a little bit better than I think I am, or in my journey. I'll say this. I forgot to check the time that I started. Okay. I'll say this that I think is so impactful, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but I remember when my ex-husband was on the Oprah Winfrey Show and said, yeah, I hit her, yeah, you know, I hit her, we hit, and the audience laughed. And I remember I had just gone, had visited a place which I love to do, an actual facility, and talk to women. And I did the thing that I would always kind of do. My response is just like, do this, and it'll be okay. God will say a prayer, everything will work out. And I remember three women calling me saying, if you're not going to stand up for yourself, stand up for us. And I went, whew, which I'm much better doing, standing up for other people than myself, quite honestly. But I ended up meeting a lawyer, Debbie Katz, has become my dear friend. And I called Oprah, who I know quite well, and I wasn't getting any phone calls back, you know? And then Debbie Katz wrote a letter to the show, and we got a call back the next day, you know? But they wanted me to come on the show. And I don't want to go on anybody's show. I want to do school drop-off and pick up and go to yoga and, you know, do this. And she said, Robin, you have to go on the show. And I remember sitting with Oprah during that time and explaining to her that not only do I look up to her, but so many people, and especially women, look up to her. And an audience laughing or chuckling, I felt from my heart needed to be addressed. And I think I was in the airport later when it was like came up, a CNN scroll, and it was like the first time Oprah has apologized to anybody, you know, on the show, which she did on the show, apologized to me. And later, I was in the little room they give you to be at, in Debbie and I, and she came running in. And she said, Robin, I knew it was wrong when it was happening. I knew it was wrong when it was happening. I just didn't know what to do about it. And for me, if Oprah doesn't know what to do about it and is having a hard time to accept and handle the situation, then it's a difficult thing for us all to talk about. She's one of the strongest, the brightest people I know, full of courage, full of commitment to women and people. And you have to say, let's have this difficult conversation. So I accepted her apology then. That's very much a part of my journey. And we have to keep having the difficult conversation. Thank God in many respects for social media, and you can see it because so many women aren't believed, you know? I mean, I've had my ex-husband say to me, I'm a professional boxer, I've got to walk the streets with you, I know how to hit you and it not be seen. And you kind of think, okay, well, I guess you do. I've had, as you mentioned, your self-esteem just eroded, the guilt you feel. It's hard to put into words. I'll never forget, I was in a pantry, and then I'll let everyone go, with my big pantry where everybody, was, and I'd come back from the Bahamas, and everybody, I remember getting off the plane and somebody saying, oh, you're so lucky. But you get kind of used to the person that's doing this to you, bringing you ice and putting it on your face, and you're thinking, okay, once again, this is love. But being with my sister locked in a pantry, saying, how long are you going to put us all through this? So once again, I couldn't leave for myself, but I could leave for her. I knew that she could see more clearly than I could at that point. And my sister, my baby sister, who is no longer with us, it's been 10 years, and here come the tears. The guilt that I carry of losing someone so close to me, almost like a twin, that I feel like maybe if I had made better choices, had not put her through so much, have not put my family through so much, if I had made better choices for the people that made wonderful choices for me, that maybe she might be here. So that's what I'm working on next, kind of that guilt and regret and letting that go and knowing that she's still with me. But I'll say this lastly. I, in my heart, and I reiterate, I know I'm repeating myself, truly believe that there is opportunity in adversity for us all to come together, like the way we are now, to reach out, to go to prisons or colleges and support one another. I am a better person and very different from probably the person I would have been had I not gone through this. I would like to believe that my voice has given other people a voice. So, as a Catholic girl whose mother goes to Mass every day, and I grew up Catholic, I would have a conversation with God. And if he said to me, the only way you can get to where you are now with my two wonderful sons, 31 and 25, that all I wanted to do was give the world two great men, two wonderful fathers and husbands. And somebody mentioned what I always say, gentleman. I mean, men have to know, look at that word, a real man is gentle, a gentle man. Be man enough to be gentle. But I would say to God, if he said, the only way you can get to where you are now is to walk through this fire, first I would say, excuse me, God, are you sure? There's not like a shortcut. And if he said no, then I would go through the fire, because I am not perfect, but I like who I am becoming every day. A person filled with compassion, and empathy, and knowing what's important, knowing what's valuable, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But love is not supposed to hurt. It just is not supposed to hurt. If it hurts, just pay attention to the flags and don't be embarrassed. We're in a new world than the time I grew up in. We're in a new time when there's less judgment and there's less shame, and And we are holding people accountable for bad behavior. Are we where we should be? No, but we're on our way. And I applaud Safe Berks for all you do to continue to get us on our way and to empower women like me who still need so much, so much. From the bottom of my heart, I cannot tell you how much. So I thank you, and I thank everyone, because it does take a village and an army, and just people need support. And it's nice to know we're not alone. And thank you for having me, and thank you for being you. Thank you.